Today, we're talking 2023 free agent running backs, and there are a lot of big name running backs with expiring contracts. What kind of deal could they get on the open market? Is there a potential successor on their current roster? And most importantly, how is this all going to impact your dynasty team? Saquon Barkley is 26 years old. He's got a market value per spottrack.com of 11.9 million. Barkley, he was an elite prospect when he came out of Penn State in 2018. He burst on the scene with over 2,000 total yards and 15 touchdowns as a rookie, finishing as a top 3 running back in fantasy points per game. The dude caught 91 passes that season. And since then, he's had a couple injury-riddled seasons, but finally healthy again. Barkley returned to form in 2022, setting himself up for a big payday. With the Giants in the midst of a rebuild, although a very productive one as they made the playoffs, there is a chance that the former number 2 overall pick is not re-signed. The team may opt to spend those resources on shoring up other areas of the team instead. With that said, Barkley, he is a candidate for the franchise tag, which would allow them to bring him back on a 1-year deal without having to commit a long-term contract to a guy who's already dealt with numerous injuries at one of the most physical positions in the sport. In the chance that he does depart, there is no viable successor on the current roster. The team would need to turn to free agency and or the draft to find a replacement. And honestly, both of those routes are loaded with a lot of quality options in 2023. My prediction is Saquon will be back with the team either on the franchise tag or in a long-term deal. Josh Jacobs is 25 years old. He's got a market value per spottrack.com of 12.1 million. And his potential successor is on the current roster. His name is Zamir White. Josh Jacobs was drafted 24th overall in 2019 by the Mike Mayock, John Gruden-led Raiders. He was kind of meh in his first 3 seasons. I mean, he was good, but not quite at that level that you would expect from a first-round running back. He wasn't utilized in the passing game like we expected he would be coming out of Alabama, and the team never seemed to fully commit to him as their bell cow back. But then came 2022, when Josh Jacobs had by far his best season. He ran for an NFL-leading 1,653 yards while battling through multiple injuries. You saw him late in the season. The dude could barely walk, groin injuries, ankle, hamstring. The dude was pushing through those injuries. And he evaded tackles at one of the highest clips in the league, while averaging 5 yards per carry. Jacobs caught 53 balls for a career-high 400 receiving yards. And he scored 12 touchdowns on his way to finishing as the RB3 in fantasy points per game. It was perfect timing for Josh Jacobs as he was in a contract year. However, there's no guarantee that he's back in Las Vegas next season. Remember, the Raiders opted not to pick up Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option, making 2022 the final year of his rookie deal. The Raiders were a disaster in Josh McDaniels' first year at the helm, so they have plenty of other areas where they need to spend that money improving in the offseason rather than giving their running back a huge deal. It's certainly possible. It is possible that Vegas diverts from its original plan after that great season, we know, and opts to extend him. Or more likely, I think, use the franchise tag to squeeze one more year out of Josh Jacobs. But it's still on the table that they could stick to the original plan and let another team write that big check. There are a lot of running backs hitting the open market this year, so it's not hard to imagine a team in need of a new back will step up and pay Josh Jacobs more than the Raiders are willing to. If that happens, 2022 4th rounder Zamir White is a viable replacement. Remember, White was an impressive prospect coming out of Georgia. The former 5-star recruit tested with excellent size-adjusted speed and burst at the NFL Combine, and he led the Bulldogs in rushing in each of his final 2 seasons despite sharing a backfield with Bills rookie James Cook. He may not get the full bell cow role that has propelled Josh Jacobs to league winner status. Instead, White would probably cede passing downs work to a specialist, but White is well worth hanging on to in Dynasty and is probably dirt cheap to get in a trade. My prediction is Josh Jacobs will return to Las Vegas on the franchise tag. Tony Pollard is 26 years old. He's got a market value per Spottrack.com of $8.2 million, and his potential successor could be on the roster. His name is Malik Davis. After years of screaming at the Cowboys coaching staff to wake up and see what they have in Tony Pollard, we finally got Tony Pollard season in 2022. Pollard exploded in the second half and was the clear better running back when compared to Ezekiel Elliott. He ran for over 1,000 yards, set career highs in receiving. He scored 12 touchdowns and was the RB8 in fantasy points per game. Pollard's breakout came just in time to get paid. Time for a new contract. With Spottrack.com giving Pollard a market value estimate of $8.2 million and Ezekiel Elliott on the books for a $16.7 million cap hit in 2023, it's likely we are going to see some changes in the Dallas backfield beginning in 2023. The only way Pollard is back is if the team moves on from Zeke. They could save $4.8 million against the cap by releasing him, or they could do a major restructuring of Ezekiel Elliott's contract, which he has already come out and said he is open to discussing that possibility. Otherwise, Pollard is going to reach the open market and be free to sign with any team. From an outside perspective, the team would be best off moving on from Zeke and moving forward with Tony Pollard. They'll not only save money at the position, but they're going with the more explosive, more efficient player at this point in their careers. It's really a no-brainer. But we also know how Jerry Jones operates, and we know his affinity for Ezekiel Elliott. The offense goes as Zeke goes is what has seemingly been Jerry's mantra of 2022. It's ridiculous. But we can't expect the Cowboys to approach this situation logically. It's the Cowboys. It's Jerry Jones. So there's a good chance that Pollard's tenure in Dallas is coming to an end. Looking at possible landing spots, Pollard's skill set would be a great fit in Miami, where they run a lot of outside zone running. That running backs with speed like Tony Pollard's really thrive. If Pollard departs, 2022 undrafted rookie Malik Davis could get first crack at the RB2 job in Dallas. He doesn't match Pollard's speed and athleticism, but he does have 94th percentile burst per playerprofiler.com, and he has looked good in minimal opportunities this season. Miles Sanders is 26 years old. He's got a market value per Spottrack.com of $7.2 million. His successor is on the current roster. His name is Kenneth Gainwell. Like the others before him, 2022 has been Miles Sanders' best season. He's been healthy. He reached 1,000 rushing yards for the first time in his career, and he's taken advantage of an elite Eagles offense. However, out of the bigger name backs set to hit the open market, like we've already talked about, like Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and so on, Sanders feels the most likely to land with a new team in 2023. If that's the case, it's hard to find many situations that would secure him in the workhorse role that he enjoyed in 2022. After all, he hasn't been that efficient. Sure, he's averaged 4.9 yards per carry, which is excellent. We'll give him that. But per playerprofiler.com, His evaded tackles per touch ranks 35th among all running backs. His percentage of carries that reached at least 15 yards is 29th, so he's not making big splash plays. And his yards created per touch rank 50th. If Miles Sanders does not return to Philly, that's going to open the door for Kenny Gainwell to take on a bigger role. Gainwell didn't wind up with the role that we had hoped for him in his second season, but he has the skill set to lead a backfield committee. At 5'8", 201 pounds, Gainwell is big enough to be more than just a satellite back. Remember, he ran for over 1,400 yards in 2019 at Memphis while commanding over 60 targets. He's been efficient in his limited chances in the NFL, averaging over 4 yards per carry in each season and ranking number 7 in fantasy points per touch in 2022. And we saw him rip off that big run at the end of the Eagles' divisional playoff win. Still, Gainwell would probably be paired with a bigger back from free agency, maybe like a Damian Harris type, or a day 3 draft pick. David Montgomery is 26 years old. He's got a spot track value of $9.7 million. And his potential successor is on the current roster. His name is Khalil Herbert. The 2022 season was David Montgomery's worst season since his 2019 rookie campaign. He failed to reach 1,000 yards for the third time in 4 years while catching the fewest passes since that inaugural season. He averaged under 4 yards per attempt and took a carry 15 yards or more just 3 times all season. Now, to be fair, he did suffer an ankle sprain in week 3, had a knee issue as well, and he was behind one of the worst run blocking units in the NFL. But David Montgomery will turn 26 years old before the first kickoff of 2023, when he will likely be playing for a new team. It's hard to imagine the Bears will pay the estimated market value per SpotTrack.com of nearly $10 million per year to a league average plotter, especially when they have a Khalil Herbert waiting in the wings. If Herbert inherits the starting gig, we can count on him as an RB2 in fantasy football for the next couple of seasons. Herbert has been efficient in his limited opportunities since entering the league as a 6th-round pick in 2021. On over 100 carries during the 2022 season, Herbert averaged 6 yards per carry and ranked top 5 in true yards per carry, yards per touch, and evaded tackles per touch per playerprofiler.com. He also ranked number 7 in yards created per touch, and he broke off a run of 15 yards or more on 5.6% of his carries, which ranked inside the top 20. Kareem Hunt is 27 years old. He's got a market value per SpotTrack.com of about $6 million. His potential successor is on the current roster. His name is Jerome Ford. We've heard the rumors of Kareem Hunt getting traded for years. It never happened, though. It never happened. All the rumors never happened. Now he's heading towards free agency, where he will almost certainly sign with a new team. But at 27 years old, Kareem Hunt's days as a team's RB1 may be over. The 2022 season was by far Kareem Hunt's worst as a pro. His production and efficiency metrics were down across the board, and he basically fell off the radar for fantasy football. In fact, Hunt has now gone 2 straight seasons with under 500 yards rushing. He's known for his receiving skills, but he barely topped 200 yards in that category. Hunt will likely continue to be a committee back, albeit with someone other than the Cleveland Browns. His skill set is in the passing game. That's going to help him remain relevant during fantasy draft season. A potential successor as the RB2 to Nick Chubb is 2022 5th-round pick Jerome Ford. However, Ford is far from a one-for-one replacement for Kareem Hunt. Ford has excellent size-adjusted speed, but he disappointed at the NFL Combine in both the explosion and agility drills. He's also not the natural receiver that Hunt is, with just one season of double-digit receptions at Cincinnati. Ford has just 8 carries in the NFL for 12 yards. Rashad Penny's career has been riddled with injuries, but over the last 2 seasons when he's been healthy, Penny has been one of the more productive running backs in the league. He was a league winner in fantasy in 2021 with how dominant he was over the last month of the season. He started off slow in 2022 before ripping off 157 total yards and 2 touchdowns in week 4. The very next week, though, he fractured his tibia and was done for the season. Unfortunately, that injury likely cost him millions of dollars in this upcoming free agency cycle. He almost certainly won't be back in Seattle, as the Seahawks have moved on to rookie second-rounder Kenneth Walker. And with his injury history, plus the other options available in free agency and the draft, both are very strong this year, he is not going to find an opportunity to slide in as a team's top running back. Penny will likely have to sign a 1-year, prove-it type deal with the hopes that he's going to get enough opportunities to earn himself a more substantial deal in 2024. Jamal Williams is 28 years old. He's got a market value per Spottrack.com of $4.1 million. Jamal Williams was the thorn in the side of all DeAndre Swift fantasy managers in 2022. He also played the role of the league's top touchdown scorer, breaking Barry Sanders' long-standing single-season franchise record. For the first time since being drafted by the Packers in the 4th round of the 2017 draft, Jamal Williams had a 1,000-yard rushing season. He wasn't exactly efficient, though, with a true yards per carry, juke rate, yards created per touch, and breakaway run rate, all ranked outside the top 50 per playerprofiler.com. Williams will be 28 years old when free agency commences. The Lions view him as one of their veteran leaders, and they clearly love him as a red zone weapon. So there's a good chance that he does stay in Detroit. That would be bad news for DeAndre Swift fantasy managers, but for the best chance for Williams to maximize his own production. Raheem Mostert is 31 years old. Spottrack does not give him a market value estimate at this point, but his potential successor could be Jeff Wilson. He's also a pending free agent. We'll get to him shortly. After a career littered with injuries, Raheem Mostert stayed mostly healthy for the duration of the 2022 season. He shared the backfield with fellow 49er alum Jeff Wilson as they both approached the 1,000-yard mark. Mostert proved he still has the speed and explosion to operate in the Shanahan-style rushing attack at a very high level. That could prompt the team to bring him back on another 1-year deal at age 31. Remaining in Miami would be the best outcome for anyone rostering Mostert in dynasty leagues. Deontay Foreman is 27 years old. He's got a market value per Spottrack.com of $3 million. And Chuba Hubbard would be his successor if Foreman moves on. Deontay Foreman arose from the dead in 2021 in relief of an injured Derrick Henry while playing for the Titans. That got him a free agent deal with the Panthers, who pushed him up the depth chart when they sent Christian McCaffrey to San Francisco. Foreman again took full advantage of his opportunity, ripping off several 100-yard performances while sharing a backfield with Chuba Hubbard. With many other holes to prioritize on the Panthers roster in 2023, the team would be smart to continue to ride the Foreman-Hubbard tandem for another year. However, if Foreman signs elsewhere, the team could turn to Hubbard to lead the backfield. It would be more likely, though, that they would replace him with a veteran or through the draft, creating another committee with Hubbard and the new addition. Samaje Perine is 27 years old. He's got a market value per SpotTrack.com of 1.2 million, and his potential successor could be on the current roster. His name is Chris Evans. Samaje Perine proved to be one of the more valuable backup running backs in football, totaling 332 yards and 4 touchdowns over a 3-game stretch in the absence of Joe Mixon. His versatility as a pass catcher will make him a hot commodity on the open market for teams looking to add some depth at the position. If he departs Cincinnati, it may or may not be Chris Evans getting first crack at the RB2 job. Evans had his chance to seize the backup role in training camp in an open competition between he and Perine. He failed to impress, and he's been barely heard from since. Evans is an explosive running back, though, with the size and receiving skills to take a full workload, so he would be a valuable handcuff if he does become the number 2. Devin Singletary is 25 years old. He's got a market value per SpotTrack.com of 5.8 million, and his potential successor is on the current roster. His name is James Cook. Devin Singletary has had another season of just solid production. He's not special in any aspect, but he does enough to be able to take advantage of the explosive Bills offense. He's small, he's slow, and not particularly skilled in the passing game. This will likely be the last time he ever leads the backfield. The Bills drafted James Cook in the second round and have ramped up his role over the course of the season. Cook is an explosive, big play threat who has the receiving chops to be a 3-down workhorse. Cook's dynasty value will continue to rise over the next 10 months. Damian Harris is 26 years old. He's got a market value per SpotTrack.com of $7 million. His potential successor is on the current roster, another Harris. This time it's Kevin Harris. The warning signs were there all summer long, telling us not to draft Damian Harris and redraft and to get out now in Dynasty. Harris ran for just 463 yards and scored only 3 touchdowns. That was after scoring 15 last season. Between losing his job to Ramondre Stevenson and numerous stints on the injury report, Harris's dynasty value has plummeted. The same could be said for his value on the open market. It would be a shock to see him back in New England. He's unlikely to find a starting gig anywhere else either. Instead, we can anticipate a committee role or even a true backup job on a 1-year deal in 2023. His best case scenario would be to pair with a Kenny Gainwell in Philadelphia or a James Cook in Buffalo. We could also see him reunite with Josh McDaniels if Josh Jacobs leaves Las Vegas and have a chance to compete with Zamir White. The next man up in New England would be Kevin Harris. We've seen Pierre Strong involved a bit during the season as well, but Kevin Harris is more the plodder type that Damian Harris is. We liked Kevin Harris coming out of South Carolina last year, where he had an extremely productive sophomore season before a back injury set him back. But that sophomore season showed us that he can be a workhorse running back that dominates between the tackles and in short yardage situations. He's the big and powerful running back that has enough juice to break off a few chunk plays here and there. Jerick McKinnon has really come on in his age 30 season. He scored touchdowns at an unbelievable clip down the stretch. He was efficient in doing so, leading all running backs in yards created per touch and fantasy points per opportunity, and ranking top 5 in yards per reception, receiving yards, and yards per touch per playerprofiler.com. McKinnon is a great fit in the Chiefs offense, paired with the bigger, bruising Isaiah Pacheco. It would be wise of the Chiefs to run it back with McKinnon for one more year in 2023. Jeff Wilson is 27 years old and he's got a market value per SpotTrack.com of $2.9 million. Jeff Wilson played very well in both San Francisco and Miami this season. Like Raheem Mostert, his best case scenario would be re-signing in Miami, where he can play a scheme that suits him well and in a good offense that's going to help maximize his fantasy production. Otherwise, he's staring at a backup job on a one-year deal. Alexander Mattison, he's 24 years old. Market value per spottrack.com of $1.2 million, and his potential successor could be on the Vikings roster right now. His name is Ty Chandler. Somehow, Alexander Mattison is still only 24 years old. It feels like he's been one of the fantasy football top handcuff running backs for about a decade. He didn't get many opportunities in 2022 and was quite inefficient in the ones that he did get. With trade rumors earlier in the season, in the preseason, and the drafting of Ty Chandler in 2022, it's likely we see Mattison go and sign elsewhere in free agency. As for Ty Chandler, he missed most of the season with a fractured thumb, but during his time at North Carolina, Chandler showed he has natural hands with the athleticism and versatility to develop into a weapon at the NFL level. He will likely never carry the load in a way that would make him the elite handcuff that Mattison once was, but he'll have an opportunity to become a change of pace ball carrier and big play receiver alongside Dalvin Cook. James Robinson is 24 years old and he's got a market value per spottrack.com of $3.8 million. Unlike the others we discussed before him, James Robinson is a restricted free agent, meaning he's going to be free to negotiate and sign with any team, but the Jets can make an offer called a tender that comes with the first right of refusal and or draft pick compensation. Given the fact that Robinson has been pretty bad when he's played and has been a healthy scratch on numerous occasions, it would not be a surprise to see the Jets completely pass on making an offer. Could he reemerge elsewhere as a fantasy relevant running back? It's possible. It is possible. But his days as a must start RB1, RB2, they're over.